No one believed in humans anymore. Not really. They were stories told in hushed tones, myths from the days when the stars were still wild and uncharted. The young ones laughed them off, tales of creatures so stubborn, so violent, and so wildly unpredictable that the galaxy itself was said to have pushed them out, erasing their existence like a bad memory. The elders, though? They never laughed. They didn't speak of humans often, but when they did, there was always a pause in their voice, a flicker in their eyes, like they remembered something they'd rather forget. Among the Azari people, the story of humans was like a bedtime ghost tale. "Don't lie, or the humans will come back," they'd say to naughty children. "Don't cheat the trade markets, or you'll end up like the Var Dominion. The humans didn't spare them either." But that was all it was. Folk tale. Until the silence broke. It started with a signal. Just a weak transmission picked up on the outer rim of Sector X-12, close to what was known as the dead space. A transmission that repeated one phrase over and over: "This is Earth Command. We are returning." Most brushed it off as static, a prank, maybe a leftover automated probe from a forgotten war. But the Zarn Intelligence Collective picked it up and didn't like what they heard. Machines don't fear stories, unless they come with data. And this signal carried metadata that didn't make sense. The code embedded in it was human, or at least something terrifyingly close. So the collective sent scouts, then battlecruisers, then an entire drone fleet. None of them came back. That's when things got serious. The Galactic Accord met in emergency session, the first time in over 6,000 cycles. Every species showed up, even the ones who hadn't left their homeworlds in centuries. They debated. They denied. They panicked. And then the warships arrived. They didn't look like anything the galaxy had ever seen. No curved elegance, no polished chrome, no unnecessary design. Just dark, massive monsters, engine trails that burned like dying suns, hulls that looked like they'd been carved from black stone. No insignias, no greetings, no demands. They didn't need to speak. One by one, orbital defenses fell. Silent, precise, not just destroyed, humiliated. Whole fleets blinked out of the stars without ever getting a lock. AI cores went dark. Fleets surrendered before even seeing the enemy. Rumors spread like fire. They don't use shields. They are shields. They upload viruses through quantum space. They took down a worm gate without firing a shot. By the time the ships reached the capital world of Velmora Prime, the galaxy wasn't laughing anymore. And then came the message. One broadcast in every language, every code, every neural interface and auditory channel across the stars. It said, "You erased us. You hunted us. You wrote our extinction into your history books. We were myths to you. Now we are memory. We are back, and we do not forget." Panic turned into terror, but amidst the chaos, some remembered. The old Azari priestess, eyes clouded with age, whispered to no one in particular. They warned us. The humans don't come to talk. They come to finish. Far away, on a mining station orbiting the ice planet Tyrix, a young mechanic stared out the viewport. His hands trembled as dozens of black silhouettes cut across the stars like blades. He'd grown up thinking humans were just a joke. Now he couldn't stop shaking. The silence after that message was worse than the destruction. Velmora Prime stood still. Billions of citizens held their breath, staring at the sky like waiting for a second sunrise. Only this time, they knew it wouldn't bring warmth. The human fleet didn't fire, not at first. They hovered, watching, like predators studying prey. The Accord's top minds scrambled, trying to understand their intentions, but none of their models worked. Humans weren't acting with logic, or at least not the kind galactic civilizations understood. "They're waiting for something," said Admiral Karen of the Threx Dominion. maybe surrender. But others disagreed. The humans didn't come for surrender. They came for something else. High Chancellor Dovrax, leader of the Galactic Accord, ordered a message to be sent. Diplomatic, respectful, desperate. It began with, "We welcome you back," and ended with, "Let us coexist in peace." The humans didn't answer. Instead, one of their ships broke formation. It moved slowly, deliberately, toward the moon of Velmora. The moon held the Accord's War Museum, a place dedicated to past conflicts, including the so-called human cleansing, an event now known to be far less one-sided than records claimed. The ship didn't fire at the moon. It opened a bay door. A single object dropped. No weapon, no bomb. A statue. It landed hard enough to shake seismic sensors across the hemisphere. When drones approached, they saw it clearly. An obsidian figure, shaped like a human warrior, armored in old Terran design. At its feet, engraved in flawless common galactic script, were 6 words. "We bury the lies with fire." That was when the first real wave began. Human drop pods screamed through the atmosphere. Not thousands, millions. Black spheres slicing through clouds, landing across military outposts, communication relays, old battlegrounds. Each carried 1 or 2 soldiers, tall, armored, faceless behind reflective visors. They didn't speak. They didn't broadcast. They just moved with terrifying precision. And they knew the terrain. Every bunker, every shield pattern, every emergency protocol, because humans never forgot what was done to them, and they never stopped planning for payback. Admiral Karen launched a counterattack from orbit. Her cruisers opened fire, sending plasma bolts toward the drop pod zones. But nothing hit. The humans' ships projected some kind of distortion, a black mist that bent light and signals. Her own fleet systems began glitching. One by one, the ships turned cold. No explosion. Just silence. Inside the Accord war room, panic turned into paralysis. Ministers shouted. Generals wept. Chancellor Dovrax stood frozen, watching as his empire unraveled, not through negotiation or siege, but through a methodical unraveling. The worst part? There were no demands. The humans weren't here for territory. They weren't here for reparations. They were here to erase the myth, to remind the galaxy. We were never your story. You were part of ours. And in the mining station above Tyrix, the young mechanic, Rez, found himself drafted by a force he didn't understand. The humans hadn't touched Tyrix yet, but their ships hung above the planet like executioners waiting for the rope to swing. Rez watched as the local governor tried to send messages to the human ships. No response. Then came a flicker on the screen. A single word. Survivors. No one knew what it meant, but Rez felt something in his gut. This wasn't a war of revenge. It was a reckoning. The word survivors didn't make sense at first. It hung on the monitors like a warning written in blood. Cryptic, cold, final. People across the station whispered theories. Maybe the humans were identifying themselves. Maybe they were looking for their own kind left behind. Or maybe, and this sent chills down Rez's spine, they were searching for collaborators, those who had helped erase them. Tyrix had always been a backwater planet. Icy, isolated, only good for mining rare crystals. It wasn't part of the human cleansing wars, at least not directly. But after that message, the governor's face went pale. He locked himself in the control room and refused to speak to anyone. Rez watched the broadcasts like everyone else. Footage leaked from Velmora showed human infantry, silent, fluid, almost like ghosts, moving through cities untouched by fire. They didn't destroy everything, just certain things. Statues, libraries, government buildings, especially anything that contained official history. Entire archives were erased, wiped clean, not hacked, not burned, erased. No trace left, no backups. It was like the humans were removing the lie at its roots. Back on Tyrix, tension thickened. Ships stopped coming. Communications were jammed. The station's upper class started hoarding supplies. Armed guards appeared at exits. The miners, people like Rez, were told to keep working. But no one believed in the system anymore. One night, Rez was fixing a damaged coolant line in sub-level 9 when he stumbled on an old maintenance panel behind a bulkhead. It hadn't been used in years. Curious, he pried it open and found something strange. A body, or at least what was left of one, mummified, wrapped in rags. The bones were strange, longer limbs, broader shoulders, a single dog tag hung from its neck. J. Navarro, United Terran. Front Rez stumbled back, heart thudding. A human? He didn't call security. He didn't even tell his co-workers. Something in him screamed to keep quiet. He took the tag and left the body untouched. Later that night, he stared at it in his bunk, tracing the letters with his thumb. How had a human corpse ended up on Tyrix? The next morning, the human ships moved. One descended into the lower atmosphere, directly above Tyrix Station. No weapons deployed, no troops dropped, just a signal. "We are aware." 3 words, that was it. But those 3 words shattered whatever illusion remained. The governor tried to flee. His shuttle exploded before it left the hangar. Then came the second broadcast. It was a recording, years old, buried in a file that shouldn't have existed anymore. The governor, much younger, laughing in a bar on Velmora, bragging about cleaning up a crash site, one where some filthy Terrans tried to hide. He spoke of burying bodies in Tyrix tunnels. Rez watched in stunned silence. So did everyone else. Suddenly, Tyrix wasn't innocent. It wasn't a forgotten rock. It was a graveyard, a secret one. And the humans knew. Rez understood now what survivors meant. The humans weren't looking for allies. They were looking for the truth. For those who survived the cleansing. For the ones who hid. And maybe, just maybe, for those willing to remember. Outside, the human ship hovered, unmoving. Its black hull gleamed with frost and firelight. Rez stared up through the cracked dome of the station and whispered, "What do you want from us?" The answer didn't come in words. That night, every system on the station shut down, and a figure appeared in sub-level 9, alone. Human. He stood there, surrounded by silence, like the whole world had stopped spinning just to watch. Rez had never seen a human before. Not in real life. Only in old, distorted images, tall shadows in dusty archives, faces blurred by time or erased entirely. But this one was real. He wasn't wearing the black armor like the others. Just a simple dark coat, worn boots, a utility belt, and something strange on his shoulder. A symbol, 2 broken wings, wrapped around a burning star. His face was unreadable, calm, but with a weight behind his eyes, like he carried 1,000 stories no one wanted to hear. Rez didn't move, didn't breathe. The human raised a hand, not in threat, but something closer to acknowledgement, maybe even peace. Then he spoke. "You found Navarro." Rez's throat tightened. The dog tag. The body. How did he... "You carry it," the man added, glancing at Rez's chest. "We can sense our own." Rez pulled the tag from under his shirt, slow and careful, like it might explode. The man took a step forward, boots scraping against the metal floor of sub-level 9. "He wasn't supposed to be here," Rez managed to say. "None of us were supposed to be anywhere," the man said, voice low. "Not after what they did." Rez swallowed hard. "Why are you here? I mean, why now?" The human's gaze drifted upward, as if staring through the layers of steel and rock, all the way to the stars. "Because it's time," he said. "The truth rots in shadows. We're here to burn it into the light." Rez's mind raced. Tyrix was nothing. Forgotten. It didn't matter in the galactic scheme. But now it was on the map, and not in a good way. "They'll fight you," Rez said. "The Accord. They'll send everything they have." "They already did," the man replied flatly. "And they lost." Rez's stomach turned. "So what now? You just erase us, like they did to you?" The man looked at him, eyes steady. "That depends. Were you part of the lie, or part of the silence?" Rez didn't have an answer for that. He didn't even know what it meant. All he knew was he was a mechanic who found a corpse he shouldn't have, and now he was standing in front of something bigger than anything he'd ever imagined. The man turned. "There are more like you, ones who've seen the cracks, the holes in the stories." He paused. "We're not here to conquer. We're here to correct. And if that means burning down the systems that kept the lie alive, so be it." Before Rez could respond, the lights flickered. Then a siren. A low, moaning tone that hadn't been heard in decades. Unidentified life-form breach. Central AI offline. Emergency lockdown initiated. Rez's comm buzzed. Voices screamed across the channel. "They're inside. Not soldiers, civilians. They're opening doors from the inside." Rez looked at the man. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," the human said quietly. "They did. Your people. The ones who remembered. The ones who waited." A second figure stepped out from the shadows behind him. A woman. Shorter, sharper. Scars down her neck. Her eyes locked onto Rez. "He's clean," she said. The man nodded. "Then let's show him." Rez followed them. He didn't know why. Curiosity? Fear? Maybe something deeper. They led him through old mining shafts, into sealed chambers no one had entered in years. There, behind layers of rusted doors, sat relics of a past denied. Terran banners, crates of forbidden data, and in the middle, an old communications rig, blinking softly. The woman touched it gently. "We've been waiting a long time," she said, "but it's not just about revenge." She turned to Rez. "It's about memory." Rez had never seen tech like this before. The room was buried deep, far below Tyrix's mapped levels. It was ancient, sealed behind bulkheads coated in frost and carbon scoring, like someone had tried to destroy it, then gave up. The rig itself looked half dead, barely humming, with wires snaking out like veins into old crystal cores. And still it worked. The woman knelt beside the console. Her fingers danced across the dusty interface with practiced ease, waking it from its coma. Rez watched in silence, unsure if he was a prisoner or a witness. "This was Navarro's final transmission point," she said without looking up. "The last thing he did before he died was send a signal. We think it never reached anyone. Until now." Rez finally spoke. "Why would he come here? Why Tyrix?" The man, who still hadn't shared his name, leaned against the wall, arms folded. "Because Tyrix was neutral, a blind spot. And because someone here helped him." Rez blinked. "Helped him?" The woman nodded. "Navarro didn't crash here by accident. He was guided, smuggled through mining lanes off the record. Someone in your station risked everything to protect him. We're here to finish what they started." Rez felt like the air had thinned. None of this made sense. His whole life had been about keeping things running. Pipes, lights, machinery, not uncovering buried history, not standing in forgotten catacombs with the ghosts of a species erased from textbooks. "But what are you finishing?" he asked, taking a slow step forward. The man finally pushed off the wall. "The story. The real one." The screen blinked. Then, grainy at first, a face appeared. Tired, bruised, but unmistakably human. It was Navarro. "This is Commander J. Navarro, United Terran Front. If this reaches anyone, Anyone who still believes in what we were, know that I didn't die quietly. They tried to erase us. They told the galaxy we were monsters. Maybe we were, but we were alive. And that matters more than any lie." He coughed, blood staining his lips. "If Earth is gone, if no one else made it out, let this recording be proof. We were here. We fought. We bled. And we remember." The screen faded to black. The woman's voice was soft. "He died a few hours after that, alone, broken, believing no one would hear him." Rez swallowed the lump in his throat. It was too much, too fast, too heavy. "So you're doing this for him?" "No," the man said. "We're doing it for everyone like him. The millions who were hunted. The children who never saw Earth. The soldiers turned into shadows. This isn't justice. It's remembrance." Rez looked down at the dog tag still in his hand. For the first time, it didn't feel like a strange piece of metal. It felt like a weight. A truth. "So what happens now?" he asked. The woman stood. "Now, we show the galaxy what they buried." Rez stared at the communication rig. "You're going to transmit it?" "To everyone," she said. "Every system, every port, even the ones that banned human media. We're going to infect the lie with truth." Rez hesitated. "They'll come for you." "They already have," the man said. "They just don't know we're inside the walls." Outside, alarms began to blare again. Soft at first, then louder. The humans didn't flinch. The woman looked at Rez. Really looked. "You don't have to help. But if you do, it means something." "What?" "That not everyone forgot." Rez stared at her. Then the rig. Then at Navarro's last words, still echoing in his mind. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a historian. But he was someone who saw the lie now. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. He stepped forward and placed the dog tag on the console. "I'll help." The man smiled faintly, like he'd been waiting for that all along. "Then let's wake the stars." They moved quickly after that. The woman, she finally gave her name. Lyra began routing power from auxiliary cores to boost the old transmitter. Rez watched as she pulled up ancient encryption protocols, bypassing station firewalls like they were made of paper. She wasn't just a rebel. She was a relic-born architect of digital war. The man, now known as Cade, kept watch near the sealed bulkhead. From his stance, Rez could tell he was used to violence, not the theatrical kind the Accord's enforcers displayed, but the quiet, final kind that left no witnesses. Every part of Rez wanted to panic. The alarms were howling now. Red lights painted the tunnels like veins on fire. Somewhere above them, soldiers were gathering. Accord forces would be here soon, armed and paranoid. "We'll have maybe 5 minutes once the signal launches," Lyra said without looking up. "The rig's not cloaked. The second it transmits, every surveillance drone in orbit is going to ping its location." Rez cleared his throat. "So, we're doing this to die." Lyra smirked. "We're doing this so they don't die again." Cade tossed him a rifle. Rez caught it awkwardly, nearly dropping it. I've never used one of these," he admitted. Cade only nodded. "Don't shoot unless you have to. But if you do, aim for center mass. They'll be wearing suppressor armor." Rez's fingers tightened around the cold metal. This wasn't supposed to be his fight. He fixed pipes, cleaned reactors. He didn't broadcast forbidden messages to the galaxy or shoot at elite security units. And yet, here he was. The console beeped 3 times. Then a low hum filled the chamber. Lyra's eyes lit up. "We're online," she said. "Initiating full-spectrum burst. This'll reach every unshielded receiver from here to the Helix barrier." Rez stepped closer as the screen displayed hundreds of symbols, languages from every known species. Below them, a countdown ticked down from 60. Lyra looked up at him. Still in? Rez nodded. They killed the truth once, not again. She hit the final command. The rig pulsed. A wave of energy surged out like a scream in the dark. Navarro's recording began to play, then dozens more like it. Testimonies, footage, photos, archive dumps long thought purged, human cities in flames, Accord soldiers laughing over mass graves, internal communications from officials who signed the extinction orders, the ugly, buried core of galactic peace, now unburied. In orbit, Accord monitors exploded with data they never thought could return. On every trade route, holoscreens flickered, then showed the words, "We were erased. Now we speak." Rez felt it the moment the signal went through, like a dam breaking inside his chest. The room trembled. Outside, a blast shook the corridor. The Accord was coming. Cade sealed the inner hatch. "We hold them here," he said calmly. "They can't stop it now. But they'll try." Rez took position behind a crate, heart pounding so loud it almost drowned the noise. Lyra pulled out a compact pistol and covered the side entrance. Then came the thudding boots, voices, shouts, and then smoke. The door burst open. Rez fired without thinking, and for a moment he thought he missed. But one of the armored soldiers dropped, sparks flying from their chest plate. The firefight erupted. It was fast, brutal. Rez ducked behind piping as shots tore through the air. Cade moved like a phantom. 2 shots, 2 bodies. Lyra shouted something he couldn't hear over the noise. The console sparked. They'd hit something. "No, no, no, hold it!" Lyra screamed, diving for the terminal. "The relay's still transmitting!" Rez saw a soldier raise his rifle toward her. He didn't think. He pulled the trigger. The shot hit. The soldier fell, and Rez couldn't breathe. Lyra looked at him, wide-eyed. "You just saved the truth." He didn't feel like a hero. He felt sick, but he nodded. Outside, more footsteps, more enemies, but above them, in the stars, the message flew, carved into every data stream, every broadcast. The humans were never a myth. They were a warning, and now they're a reckoning. The stars trembled with revelation. Across the galaxy, the message spread like wildfire through vacuum. Entire networks crashed under the weight of incoming data. Civilian hubs blinked in and out of operation. Military AI flagged the transmission as Level 9 forbidden content. And still, it reached billions. On Vol 4, a history professor dropped her tablet as images of Terran children in cages flashed across her screen. She'd taught for 20 years that humans were savages, uncivilized aggressors destroyed for the safety of the stars. Now she watched a human mother shielding her baby during a bombardment she'd been told never happened. In the capital domes of Satari Prime, protests exploded within hours. Young ones, born after the war, marched with stolen banners showing Earth's crest. They shouted one word in every dialect: lies. In military stations, soldiers hesitated to follow orders. One squad refused to fire on demonstrators. Another broke into their own records room, searching for classified archives, and leaked them. The galaxy had prided itself on order, on unity. But it had built that unity on a graveyard, and the ghosts had started to speak. Back on Tyrik's station, Rez's body ached. Smoke choked the air in the transmission chamber. Lyra was crouched by the console, frantically rerouting power after another hit blew half the system offline. Cade had a gash on his side, dark blood soaking into his coat, but he moved like it didn't exist. Rez's hands were slick with sweat, and maybe blood. He couldn't tell anymore. I think we're surrounded," he said, ducking as a blast ripped a piece of piping from the wall above him. "We were always surrounded," Cade growled. "The difference is now they're afraid." Rez swallowed hard. Of 3 people in a frozen cave? No, Lyra muttered. Of the truth being free. She slammed a key, rerouting the last power bank to the transmission relay. Sparks shot up, lighting her face in orange glow. Final packet launching now. The console let out a long beep. Transmission complete. They did it. Lyra collapsed against the wall, exhaustion pulling her limbs like gravity. Outside the room, the Accord forces went silent. No more shots, no more shouting, just a quiet shuffle. Waiting. Then, a message came in, from space, from the Terran fleet. Cade opened the comm, his face unreadable. A woman's voice came through. Cold. Calm. Tyrek Station, this is Earth Command. We received the burst. Your actions have ignited over 93,000 sub-networks. Accord censorship is failing. Stand by for retrieval. Rez blinked. Retrieval? You're sending ships? Lyra asked, sitting up. Number we already sent them. Just then, the ceiling shook. Rez ran to the viewing port, cracked but still intact, and there, piercing through the clouds, came the warships. Not sleek, not quiet. Colossal. Ships shaped like iron bones and ash. Burned emblems on their sides. Their engines didn't hum. They growled, like thunder waking from a long slumber. Accord fighters scrambled. They didn't last 3 seconds. The Terran fleet didn't fire first. They simply arrived. And the message was clear. We are not the hunted anymore. We are the storm. The soldiers outside the room laid down their weapons, one by one. You could hear them clatter against the floor. The door slid open slowly. But it wasn't a firing squad. It was Accord soldiers, hands up, and behind them more civilians. Miners, engineers, people Rez had worked beside for years. None of them looked at him the same way. One of them, an older tech named Baron, stepped forward and said, voice shaking, "We thought they were monsters." Rez nodded. So did I. Baron looked up at the sound of approaching boots, heavy, disciplined, echoing with the sound of iron justice. Terran Marines entered, black-armored and wordless. They saw Cade and Lyra, they saw Rez, and nodded. Cade stepped forward and said only 2 words. Truth holds. The air on Tyrek Station had changed. Where once there was fear and silence, now there was stillness. But not the hopeless kind. This was the stillness that came after a storm, when everything broken could finally be seen in the open. Terran Marines moved through the halls like shadows of judgment. They didn't speak, didn't boast, didn't touch anything unless necessary. Their presence wasn't to conquer, but to witness. Their armor bore the scars of extinction, but their steps carried purpose. Rez sat on the edge of the sub-level 9 platform, feet dangling over a maintenance ledge. Below him, a recovery vessel hovered. Terran tech, shaped like a knife with folded wings. He still wore his grimy overalls. His hands were still calloused from years of work. And yet something inside him had been carved out and replaced with truth. Lyra sat next to him, sipping a sealed ration pack with a crooked grin. "You've got good aim for a mechanic." Rez gave her a side glance. "Don't get used to it. I don't like guns." She nodded slowly. "Neither do I, but sometimes you pick one up because no one else will." Below them, survivors from the station were being processed, not imprisoned, not punished, just talked to. Every person was given a choice: testify or walk away. Most chose to talk. Some wept. Others simply nodded, broken by the weight of a lie they didn't even know they carried. Rez had already spoken to the Terran officer leading the operation. A woman named Vela. Her voice had the calm of someone who'd lost too much to raise it anymore. She'd listened to his account, nodded only once, and said, "You did what billions wouldn't." He hadn't known how to respond. Cade joined them, his side bandaged, movements stiff but steady. He sat down on Rez's other side without a word. For a few moments, none of them spoke. The stars above Tyrix were clearer now. The distortion fields were gone, no longer hiding truth from space. Rez finally broke the silence. "What happens next?" Cade stared ahead. "The galaxy fractures," Lyra added. "The Accord will call it terrorism. Some planets will riot, others will try to erase us again, but this time they can't kill the message. The truth's out," Cade said. "And the thing about truth, it spreads faster than fear once people realize they've been lied to their whole lives." Rez nodded slowly. "And Earth? It's still there?" Lyra hesitated, then looked at Cade. Cade's jaw tightened. "What's left of it?" Rez turned. "What does that mean?" Cade met his gaze, tired but firm. "They didn't just erase us from records. They glassed the planet. Every city, every ocean. The Earth you've heard of. It's a tomb now." Rez's stomach twisted. "And you're still fighting for it?" Cade shook his head. "Number, we're fighting because of it. Earth was our home. But now humanity lives in the memory of what they tried to destroy. Every colony that hit us, every survivor that raised a child in secret, every voice that still dares to speak our name." He looked up at the stars. "They thought killing Earth meant killing us. But humans were never just a planet. We're a species, and we're done being quiet." Far above, a new Terran vessel entered orbit. Not a warship this time, but a broadcast ship. Its signal tower unfurled like a steel flower, sending waves of truth across a galaxy built on silence. Back on the station, the surviving citizens of Tyrix gathered to watch. The children stared wide-eyed. The elders stood with shoulders slumped, unsure whether to feel guilt or relief. The message played again. "We were never your monsters. You made us into ghosts, but now we are the flame, and you will never forget us again." Rez rose to his feet, the dog tag still around his neck. "I want to see what's next," he said quietly. Lyra grinned. "Then come with us." Cade offered his hand, and for the first time, Rez took it. Behind them, the station lit up, not with fire but with light. The kind of light that comes after a long, cold night. Because the humans had returned. And the galaxy would never be the same. The war had already been going on for 7 years. Not Earth's war, no. This one was bigger. It was a galaxy-wide nightmare fought across hundreds of systems between two ancient superpowers, the Kavor Dominion and the Threxian Fold. Billions of lives lost, planets burned, civilizations reduced to dust. And the humans? They weren't even in the fight, not yet. Humanity had only recently cracked faster-than-light travel. They were late to the Galactic Party, still busy trying to map star charts and figure out what the hell a quantum gravity sling even was. Compared to the Kavor and the Threxians, races that had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years, humans were infants, primitive even. A species known more for their unpredictability than any real tactical value. But that changed fast, real fast. It started when the Kavor, desperate and losing ground, sent out a wide-frequency distress call. Their fleet had just been annihilated in Sector 9X9. Hundreds of ships gone, their generals dead. The Threxians were marching straight for the Kavor core worlds, and no one could stop them. No one, until Earth answered. Most of the Kavor thought it was a joke. Humans were untested. Their military numbers were laughable. Their ships were clunky. Their weapons were outdated by about 3,000 years. But they said they'd help. Said they had a few ships that could be deployed. Tactical support, they called it. No one expected anything from them. The Kavor didn't even send a formal ambassador, just a junior diplomat and a rundown hangar on a backwater moon for the meeting. But the humans didn't seem to care. They showed up smiling, relaxed, A dozen officers in sharp black uniforms, all with that strange human confidence. Like they were walking into a game, not a war, and leading them was a man named Captain Ray Holloway. The Kavor junior diplomat, a blue-scaled creature named Voruk, tried to keep things polite. "We thank you for your willingness to participate, but you must understand the situation is extremely dire." Holloway just shrugged. "Dire's what we do best." Voruk blinked all four eyes. "We are not sure your current technology can even withstand a single Threxian assault. Are you sure your people are ready?" Ray grinned. "We brought beer and nukes. That usually covers it." The humans deployed 5 ships. 5. Against a Threxian war caravan of over 70 destroyers. The math didn't make sense. The Kavor generals were furious. They wanted to withdraw support immediately. But the humans were already en route to the hot zone before anyone could stop them. No one expected them to survive. In fact, many of the Kavor secretly thought it would be better if the Threxians wiped them out quickly. At least then they wouldn't be a political embarrassment. But the battle in the Jalon Belt rewrote everything. The Threxians arrived with overwhelming force. Their ships were sleek, jagged, and black as void. Plasma beams stretched miles through space, lighting up the belt in bright arcs of destruction. And then, the humans struck. They didn't use formation patterns. They didn't stick to traditional tactics. Their ships moved erratically, unpredictably, ducking behind asteroids, using the debris as shields. They jammed communication signals with old-world radio frequencies. They hacked Threxian targeting systems by flooding them with raw Earth music, blasting metal, rock, jazz through deep space channels. Then came the surprise. One human ship broke through the front line, looking like it had been damaged. The Threxians closed in, hungry for the kill. That's when the ship detonated, not with a nuke, but with a graviton imploder. A device no one knew humans even had. The implosion dragged 10 Threxian ships into a compressed singularity. Gone. Just like that. The battle turned in 10 minutes. When it was over, the Kavor watched from orbit as the 5 human ships drifted calmly through the wreckage of the Threxian fleet. They hadn't just survived. They'd won. The galaxy started paying attention. And back on Earth, Captain Holloway lit a cigar, looked at the comm feed, and said, "So, when's the next round?" The aftermath of the Jalon Belt skirmish sent shockwaves through every military command in the known galaxy. Kavor High Command scrambled to update their databases. Every analyst, every tactician, every AI simulation was rerun. Same results. Those 5 human ships should have been vaporized. But they weren't. Instead, they'd shredded a far superior Threxian force, using tactics that didn't make sense, weapons no one thought they had, and, perhaps most disturbing of all, a level of improvisation that bordered on madness. Back on the Kavor capital world, the grand strategist Morka Yell, a war veteran with 800 years of service, stood in stunned silence as the holofeed played the battle footage over and over again. The human ships weaved in and out of Threxian fire, using physics-defying maneuvers, diving into gravity wells, slingshotting around asteroids like lunatics. "They fly like they have no fear of death," he muttered. "They don't," said a voice from behind. It was Voruk, the junior diplomat who had first spoken to the humans. "They call it crazy back on Earth. We call it suicidal. But it works." Morkael turned to him, his 4 eyes narrowed. "Bring me this Captain Holloway." Meanwhile, aboard the UNS Black Rain, Captain Ray Holloway was already in deep conversation with his crew. They weren't celebrating. There were no parades, no grand speeches, just a quiet debriefing in the ship's galley, a few beers, and the hum of cooling systems. "All right, let's break it down," Holloway said, running a hand through his short, graying hair. What worked, what didn't? Lieutenant Vargas leaned forward. The graviton imploder took out 10 ships, but we lost the Eclipse. That tech's a one-time deal, Captain. We don't have another. I know, Holloway said. Still worth it. What about comms? We screwed their frequencies good, said Tech Officer Lee. Used old Earth radio waves to throw off their AI eye-parsing systems. Classic tactic. They didn't even know how to process a saxophone solo. Ray chuckled. Jazz wins wars. Who knew? They all laughed quietly, but beneath the humor was something else, a storm building. Because they all knew this wasn't over. The Threxians weren't going to let this humiliation go unanswered. No empire that big ever did. As expected, less than 48 standard hours later, a formal Kavor envoy arrived. Not the junior diplomat this time. A full delegation, headed by none other than Grand Strategist Morka Yell himself. The old warrior stepped aboard the Black Rain, flanked by guards and aides, his eyes scanning every detail of the human warship like a predator assessing a new species. Ray met him at the docking bay, wearing his standard black field uniform and a cocky smile. "Welcome aboard," he said, holding out a hand. Morka Yell didn't take it. "Humans," he said, voice dry and almost disgusted. "You break every rule of warfare we've followed for millennia." Ray didn't flinch. "Good. That's the only reason we're still alive." They walked together down the corridor, the tension almost physical between them. "You are unpredictable," Morka Yell said. "Unstable, reckless." "And that's exactly what makes us valuable," Ray replied. "Your enemies don't know how to fight us because you don't know how to fight us." Morka Yell stopped walking. "You won one battle. Do not confuse that with victory." Ray turned, looked the alien dead in the eyes. "You're not asking us for help anymore, are you? You're here because you need us. Because if you don't have us on your side, this whole war is going to end with your people kneeling to Threxian overlords." Silence. Finally, Morka Yell nodded once. A slow, painful gesture. "You will have resources, command access, full operational integration. But know this. If you ever turn your tactics on us, if you ever betray the Kavor—" "We won't," Ray interrupted. "But if we did, you wouldn't see it coming." The old general didn't respond. He just walked away. Back in the command deck, Ray looked over the tactical maps. Dozens of red zones flickered across the galaxy. The war was far from over. But something had changed now, something fundamental. Humans weren't outsiders anymore. They were game changers, and both sides knew it. "We just became the wild card," Vargas said, watching the map light up with new orders from the Kavor. Ray nodded. "Let's make sure they never forget why humans don't play by the rules." The Kavor War Council had never moved this fast before. Within days, new directives were issued. Human commanders were being embedded across multiple fleets, sometimes replacing decades-old military protocols with wild, unpredictable strategies. The traditionalists hated it, but they had no choice. The Threxians had begun to accelerate their push, emboldened by how weak the Dominion had become. Captain Ray Holloway and his crew weren't just a curiosity anymore, they were a necessity. Orders came in. Operation Black Gale, a coordinated strike deep inside Threxian-occupied space. The target, a manufacturing moon called Kor Vesh, known for churning out thousands of Threxian battle drones every week. The Kavor had tried to disable it 5 times. They lost hundreds of ships each attempt. Now it was the humans' turn. The plan was simple, at least on paper. Human Squadron would breach Threxian perimeter defenses using distraction and cloaked warp hops, while Kavor long-range ships hammered from a distance. Once inside the perimeter, human commandos would land on Kor Vesh, sabotage the drone factory core, and extract before detonation. The Cavor generals predicted a 2% survival chance. Ray Holloway just laughed when he read the numbers. Guess we'll make history then. The UNS Black Rain, accompanied by 4 other human warships, launched at 0500 Galactic Standard. Inside the cramped strike room, Ray stood before his team. 12 men and women, each hand-picked from Earth's deadliest units. No aliens, no politics, just pure human instinct. You've read the mission brief. You've seen the stats, Ray said, his tone low but calm. I won't lie to you. This mission is a death wish. But if we pull it off, we shut down one of the biggest Threxian threats in this war. We hit them where it hurts. One of the soldiers, a tall woman with burn scars across her left cheek, raised her hand lazily. So what happens if we don't make it? Ray grinned. Then we die loud enough to make 'em think twice next time. Everyone chuckled, not because it was funny, but because they all knew that was the truth. Earth had always done things differently. They didn't believe in dying quietly. The approach to Kor Vesh was pure chaos. Threxian scanner drones covered the area like a cloud of hornets. Ray ordered all ships to shut off active emissions and coast through with full stealth, silent engines, no signals, no light. 3 human ships were hit before even reaching the orbit line. No screams. Just red markers blinking out on Ray's HUD. He clenched his jaw but didn't blink. Keep going. Once they broke into low orbit, the Threxians unleashed hell. Swarms of automated cannons erupted from the moon's surface, painting the black of space with a storm of orange and blue. Launch the pods, Ray barked. The human strike team jettisoned in drop pods, metal coffins hurtling through plasma fire at supersonic speeds. Most didn't make it. 2 pods were vaporized mid-air. Another lost control and crashed into a communications tower. The rest? They hit dirt. Hard. Ray's pod slammed into the rocky surface, tearing through steel layers of Kor Vesh's outer hull. He unstrapped fast, heart pounding, ears ringing. Squad, check in, he yelled through comms. Static. Then a voice. Vargas. I'm in. West sector. Took a hit. Legs busted, but I'm moving. Another voice. Corporal Jules. I got eyes on the core tunnel. 3 clicks out. They were scattered, but alive. Rally at Vector 6, Ray ordered. We're blowing this place to hell. The Threxians came fast, faster than expected. 8-legged drone guards emerged from the dust, crawling across walls and ceilings like metallic spiders. One of them dropped down in front of Ray, eyes glowing red, claws twitching. He emptied his rifle into its skull, then kept running. By the time they reached the core entrance, they were down to 6. Bloodied, burned, but unbroken, they planted the charges, synchronized detonation, and began the escape run. Every hallway was a maze of fire and shrapnel. The Threxians weren't just defending, they were panicking. For the first time, it felt like fear. Ray was the last one to the evac point. He dragged Vargas over his shoulder, her leg hanging limp and bleeding. The extraction shuttle hovered 20 meters above a collapsing platform, shield barely holding. Ray leaped. They made it. Barely. The factory exploded behind them, sending a shockwave that cracked the moon's crust and lit the void with fire. Silence in the shuttle. Then Vargas, blood on her face, whispered, "We just crippled their entire drone production line." Ray looked back at the burning moon. "Yeah," he said, "and we're just getting started." The return to Cavor space was nothing like what Ray expected. There was no celebration, no cheering crowds, no parade, just silence and a line of stern-looking alien officials waiting at the docking bay. The Black Rain landed with its hull scorched, engines coughing black smoke, and half its lights flickering from overload. Ray stepped out, limping slightly, his body aching from the shock of the blast. Vargas followed behind him on crutches, still bleeding through her bandages. The rest of the surviving crew looked like ghosts, tired, burned, hardened by something that went beyond pain. Standing at the front of the Cavor officials was strategist Morka Yell, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You succeeded," he said, voice low. Ray didn't answer immediately. He looked past the alien's shoulder, at the cold faces of the high command. "We lost 4 ships, dozens of soldiers. That moon was a meat grinder," he said. "But yeah, we succeeded." Morkayel gave a nod, slow and deliberate. "The Threxians have not launched a counteroffensive. Their drone supply lines are in chaos. You did more in 2 days than we managed in 5 years. Ray arched a brow. "You don't sound happy about it." "We are not used to depending on outsiders," Morkayel admitted. "Especially ones who fight like mad beasts." Ray smirked. Mad beasts get results. Later that night, Ray sat alone in his quarters. The lights were dim, and an old earth jazz track played softly in the background. He stared at the hollow screen in front of him, footage of the Khor Vesh assault, slowed down and replayed over and over again. Each explosion, each scream on the comms, each life lost. They had won. But the cost was rising. A message pinged across the screen. "Priority transmission." He tapped to open it. A face flickered into view. A woman, dark-haired, sharp eyes, dressed in the sleek black of Earth's covert military wing. The badge on her collar read ISD, Intelligence and Strategic Division. "Captain Holloway," she said with a cold smile, "you've made quite an impression. Earth Command wants you to know they're paying attention." Ray leaned back in his chair. "That's supposed to scare me?" "Number just reminding you that not everyone's thrilled about our cozy little alliance with the Cavor. Some think you're getting too close." "Close?" Ray scoffed. "We're not friends. We're just useful." "Exactly," she said. "And when humans become too useful, they stop being underestimated. That's when we become targets." He didn't answer. She continued, voice low. "Word is, the Threxians are shifting tactics. They're starting to study human combat patterns. They're preparing for you. So the next time you walk into a battle, Captain, you might not catch them off guard." Ray shut off the screen. The warning came true faster than anyone thought. 2 weeks later, a Cavor outpost on the edge of the Zareth corridor was attacked. No warning, no chatter, just total silence and a burst of distorted signals. When scout ships arrived, they found the entire base gone, just a crater where the station used to be. And in that crater, burned into the rock, was a symbol no one had ever seen before. A crude human skull, wrapped in Threxian language. It wasn't just war anymore. It was personal. Ray stood in front of the Cavor War Council as they analyzed the image. "They're mocking us," Morkayel said. Your kind." Ray stared at the symbol, jaw clenched. "No, they're warning us. They're saying they've figured us out." Another Cavor general hissed through sharp teeth. "This is retaliation. They want to lure you out, force a direct confrontation." Ray smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Then they'll get one." Back on the Black Rain, the crew gathered in the briefing room. The atmosphere was heavy. Half the seats were empty now, filled only by memories. Ray stood before them, a new mission forming in his head. One they hadn't authorized. One the Cavor wouldn't like. "The Threxians think they understand us now. They're expecting brute force, suicide missions, noise," he said, pacing. "But we're going to flip the script." Vargas raised an eyebrow. "What's the plan?" Ray stopped, eyes cold. "We take the fight straight to their throne world." The room went silent. "You're talking about a death sentence," Lee said. That system's locked down with 10 defense grids and enough firepower to turn a planet inside out. Ray nodded. Exactly. That's why they'll never see it coming. The Kavor High Command flat out refused the idea. You cannot attack the Threxian throne world, Morka barked, slamming a fist onto the war table. It is suicide. It is madness. Ray stood across from him, arms folded, expression unreadable. He'd expected this reaction. Suicide was flying 5 ships into 70 and winning, Ray replied. Madness was bombing Corvesh and getting out alive. This? He leaned in, voice calm. This is strategy, the kind they don't expect from humans anymore. Morka upper set of eyes narrowed, while his lower pair flicked rapidly. Kavor body language for stress. We are allies. You cannot operate without coordination. Ray didn't blink. Then coordinate faster. Back aboard the Black Rain, the mood was different. The crew was quiet, but determined. Nobody questioned Ray, not because they blindly trusted him, but because he'd dragged them through hell and back more than once. When he spoke, it wasn't with rank. It was with experience, with weight. He stood before them now, a 3-dimensional hollow of the Threxian throne world spinning slowly behind him. Vel Taraxis, a planet wrapped in planetary shields, surrounded by 6 moons, each one a fortified war platform. According to every known tactical model, it was impenetrable. Ray tapped the hollow. The image zoomed into a narrow gap in the outer defense ring, Node 12, a repair sector where shield protocols rotated every 90 seconds. A flaw, small and brief, but real. We'll enter during the rotation gap. It's only open for 17 seconds, but it's enough. Lieutenant Lee looked up. And once we're in? Ray's eyes were steel. We go quiet. We get to the surface. We plant a hyperfusion warhead right under their central command dome, and then we vanish. Vargas leaned back, shaking her head slowly. You're betting our lives on a glitch in their system. Ray nodded. Exactly, because no one else will. 2 days later, the mission began. No grand fleet, no armada, just 3 ships. Black Rain, carrying the infiltration team. UNS Harbinger, retrofitted for jamming and stealth support. UNS Remnant, a decoy ship rigged to emit false battle signatures and draw fire. The Remnant would jump in first, cause chaos, die loud. While the Threxians scrambled, the other 2 ships would sneak through the Node 12 gap, slingshot around the 4th moon, and descend to Vel Taraxis under cloak. Everyone on board knew this was a one-way mission. No rescue, no fallback. Ray gathered the infiltration team, only 9 now. Veterans, survivors. Every one of them had seen things no human ever should. He looked them in the eyes. This isn't about Earth anymore. This is about every species that's been stepped on, enslaved, wiped out by the Threxians. We're not just striking back. We're sending a message. Humanity doesn't kneel. They didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just nodded. The jump into Threxian space hit like a thunderclap. Immediately, the Remnant began its suicide run, blasting false signals and releasing decoy drones like confetti. The Threxians bit hard. Within seconds, the entire orbital defense system lit up, focusing every gun on the screaming, chaotic mess of the decoy ship. Black Rain and Harbinger slid through Node 12's gap like whispers in a hurricane. The timing was razor thin. 12 seconds in, 3 to spare. Any later, and they'd be slag. Once inside, they slingshotted beneath Moon Ceta 4, barely avoiding automated turrets, before engaging atmospheric stealth and dropping straight toward the dark side of Vel Taraxis. The planet was a black, oily ocean of metal and fire. Massive towers pierced the clouds. Drone swarms moved like storm fronts. And at the center, glowing red with power, stood the Dome of Command, home to the Threxian Overmind. Ray stared at it through the viewing port, jaw tight. This ends tonight. They hit the ground hard. The landing site was a maintenance trench, 3 clicks from the dome, shielded by heat exhaust and electromagnetic interference. Perfect cover. The team moved like shadows, cloaked in grav suits that masked their biosignatures. Silent, invisible, deadly. Every Threxian they encountered was dispatched with brutal efficiency. Blades, not bullets. No sound. When they reached the base of the dome, Ray activated the fusion warhead, a compact, unstable core built by Earth's best scientists. One blast would vaporize half the capital, and more importantly, sever the central command link that gave orders to the Threxian war machine. He looked at Vargas. She was bleeding from the shoulder, but still standing tall. "Timer?" she asked. 4 minutes, Ray replied. "We get to extraction, or we go out with a bang." They turned to run. That's when the Threxians found them. They came like a wave of shadows. Dozens of Threxian enforcers, tall, spined monsters in obsidian armor, poured into the trench from every angle, clicking and hissing in their shrill, metallic tongue. Their eyes glowed like furnace coals, and in the dim red emergency light of the dome's underbelly, the humans looked like ants facing giants. Ray didn't blink. "Scatter and move," he barked. "Stick to the plan." The team broke formation, diving into cover, returning fire with suppressed rifles and micro-grenades. Even with the element of surprise gone, their training held. 2 Threxians dropped before the others could react. Lee and Corporal Dren moved right, flanking the rear. Vargas limped forward, teeth clenched, still firing. Ray stayed in the middle, shielding the warhead. It was live now. There was no turning back. The countdown ticked down. 3:46. "Go! I'll draw them," he shouted. "No chance," Vargas growled. "We started this together, we finish it the same way." Threxian gunfire ripped through the air, a high-pitched pulse that melted steel. One blast hit a wall behind Ray, throwing him to the ground. The wind rushed from his lungs. Another bolt skimmed his arm, burning flesh straight through to bone. He grunted, bit back a scream, and kept moving. Lee's voice crackled through the comms. "We've got movement to the west. Reinforcements incoming." "How many?" Ray snapped. "Too many." The fight turned desperate. The humans ducked behind piping and metal debris, shooting when they could, tossing explosives, trying to hold the Threxians back just long enough for the timer to run out. 254 Dren was the first to fall. A plasma blade tore through his chest as he tried to cover Lee's retreat. No time to mourn. Ray just grabbed his rifle and kept going. 217. The warhead was heavy, even with the grav sling. Ray's body screamed with every step, but he didn't stop. The extraction point was only a few hundred meters away, a vertical shaft that led to an old ventilation tunnel connected to the planet's undersea vents. It was their only way out. If they could reach it, Harbinger could snag them in low orbit before the blast. But the Threxians were closing in. By the time the team reached the shaft, only 4 were left: Ray, Vargas, Lee, and Sergeant Quill. His face burned, one eye gone, dragging his leg behind him. Quill looked up at the tunnel ladder. "I'll stay," he said. "Buy you a minute." Ray turned to argue, but Quill was already unstrapping his last charge. "You said it yourself, Captain. No quiet deaths." Ray met his eyes. No words, just a nod. Quill turned and ran toward the advancing Threxians, screaming like a madman. Plasma blasts lit up the darkness. And then, silence. 141 Ray heaved the warhead into the shaft. "Vargas, climb. You too, Lee." "What about you?" Lee shouted, voice cracking. "I'll rig the final seal. Make sure it goes clean." "No," Vargas said, staring at him. "You're not dying in this goddamn trench." Ray gave her a look, quiet, steady. "You know better. Someone's got to stay. Someone's got to make sure they don't disarm it." Vargas opened her mouth to protest, but the timer kept ticking. 1:29. Go, he said. And for the first time, Vargas didn't argue. She just reached out, squeezed his hand once, then began to climb. Lee followed. Ray turned back toward the warhead, bloodied, shaking, but standing tall. A Threxian commander appeared from the smoke, a towering brute with 4 arms, each one wielding a different weapon. It stepped over the corpses of its own soldiers, snarling in its native tongue. Ray raised his rifle. Empty. Didn't matter. "Come on, you son of a bitch," he muttered. 106, the Threxian charged. Ray dove to the side, grabbing Quill's fallen blade from the dirt and jammed it into the creature's underarm as it lunged. It roared, grabbed him by the throat, slammed him into the wall. Bones cracked. Blood spilled. Ray didn't stop. He jammed the blade again, twisting it until the alien collapsed with a screech. Ray fell to his knees, coughing blood, head spinning. 037. He dragged himself to the warhead. Saw the control panel flashing. No errors. Everything in place. He looked up one last time at the shaft. No sign of Vargas or Lee. They'd made it. He smiled. 021. Then he turned back, sat against the wall, and pulled a crushed pack of cigarettes from his vest. The lighter barely worked. The flame danced once, twice, then lit. He took a slow drag. Let's see how gods bleed. At that exact moment, in orbit above Vel Taraxis, the UNS Harbinger picked up the signal. Detonation in 10, 9, 8. The planet lit up from the inside. First a pulse, then a shock wave. Then fire, a ring of it tearing upward, outward, through the command dome, through the crust, through everything. The Threxian capital was gone in seconds, their central intelligence severed. Their empire, blind, and Earth. Earth had just punched a hole straight through a galactic tyrant's heart. Vel Taraxis was gone. Not damaged, not crippled. Gone. The blast wave from the hyperfusion warhead cracked the planet's crust in half. Satellites were vaporized. Moons shifted orbit. The dome of command, the beating heart of the Threxian Empire, was reduced to molten debris scattered across the void like cosmic ashes. The shock wasn't just physical, it was psychological. For millennia, the Threxians had ruled through fear, through overwhelming force, through the illusion of invincibility. And in less than 5 minutes, that illusion was destroyed. By humans. News of the attack spread faster than light. Across Kavor space, across allied sectors, even into neutral trade routes and outlaw systems, the message was the same. Humanity had done the impossible. Some called it madness, some called it genius. But everyone understood one thing now. Earth wasn't just another primitive species trying to catch up. They were something new, something terrifying. And the Threxians, they felt it. For the first time in recorded galactic history, Threxian fleets stalled. Orders went unanswered. Outposts went dark. Entire battalions defected or fled into uncharted space. The Overmind was dead, or at least cut off, and their AI network collapsed under its own weight. It was chaos, and in chaos, humans thrived. The UNS Harbinger limped back to Kavor-controlled territory 2 days later. Inside, Vargas and Lee sat in silence in the medbay, bandaged, exhausted, not speaking. They hadn't seen Ray since the shaft, hadn't heard a word. They'd barely made it to the upper extraction tunnel when the blast rocked the mountain under their feet and launched them skyward like ragdolls in a cannon. Vargas woke up in orbit with fractured ribs and a shattered heart. He was gone. And the worst part? He'd planned it all along. At the Kavor Senate, the reaction was split. Half called Ray Holloway a hero, the soldier who saved billions, who ended a war with one final brilliant strike. The other half called him dangerous, unstable, a rogue element that had proven just how unpredictable humanity truly was. Strategist Morkael stood before the council, his face grave. You asked for a weapon. We gave you a man, and now that man has rewritten the rules of warfare. What happens when the next Ray Holloway doesn't agree with our interests? The chamber fell into murmurs. Some senators wanted restrictions. Some wanted tighter control over human operations. Others, smarter ones, wanted full alliance, immediately. They understood what was coming. Because with the fall of the Threxians, a vacuum had formed. And every lesser empire was watching, hungry to claim the power that had just been released into the galaxy. Back on Earth, Ray Holloway's name was everywhere. But the stories weren't the polished hero tales the media wanted. His former squad mates gave interviews that didn't glorify him. They warned people about his calm under pressure, his recklessness, his willingness to die if it meant sending a message. He wasn't trying to be a savior, Vargas said once on a live feed. He just hated bullies, and he wasn't afraid to burn down the house to take them with him. Monuments were proposed, statues approved, history books rewritten. But among the military, Ray Holloway became something else entirely. A lesson, a symbol. The man who proved that humans weren't valuable because of their weapons or ships or numbers, but because they were chaos, controlled only by purpose, and sometimes not even that. 2 weeks after Veltaraxis, a signal pulsed from deep space, encrypted, human-coded, ancient encryption no longer in use, only one line of text. Tell Vargas she still owes me a drink. Lee nearly choked when he saw it. Vargas went pale, then angry, then hopeful, all in the span of 10 seconds. Where the hell is it coming from? She asked. Edge of uncharted territory, Lee replied, grinning. Looks like someone hitched a ride on a Threxian debris runner. She stared at the blinking coordinates for a long time, then stood. Prep a ship, she said. Lee blinked. You think it's really him? I don't know, she said, jaw tight. But if it is, I'm going to kill him myself. Vargas had never flown this fast in her life. The ship tore through the edge of charted space, past dying stars and radiation belts so intense the hull trembled. Navigation. I screamed warnings every few minutes, but she didn't care. If the coordinates were wrong, she'd burn out the fuel cells trying. If they were right, well, she wasn't sure what she'd do when she saw him. Lee sat beside her, watching her more than the nav feed. You sure you're ready for this? No, Vargas muttered, but he sure as hell is. They found the signal source orbiting a rogue planetoid, a jagged chunk of rock tumbling slowly through the darkness. There were no cities, no ships, no defenses, just a wrecked Threxian transport, half buried in a crater, its emergency beacon still blinking. The human-coded message pulsed once more as they approached. Room service is late. Vargas rolled her eyes. Yup, that's him. They landed on the surface. Atmosphere was thin, barely breathable, just enough to keep a dying man alive. But Ray Holloway wasn't dying. He was sitting on a crate outside the wrecked transport, wearing a patchwork survival suit and gnawing on something that looked like dehydrated meat. He didn't even look up as their ramp lowered. Took you long enough, he said. Vargas didn't say a word. She just walked over, fist clenched, and punched him square in the jaw. He fell backward off the crate, coughing and laughing like a lunatic. I missed you too, he said. You son of a bitch, she shouted. You let us think you were dead. You didn't even leave a message. He stood slowly, brushing off dust. I had to disappear. You know that. If the Threxians or half the galaxy knew I was alive, they'd come hunting. Earth couldn't protect me. Hell, the Kavor couldn't either. Lee stepped out behind her, arms crossed. So you've just been camping out here on Rock for Brains planet while the rest of us picked up the pieces? Ray's smile faded a little. I've been listening, watching. The war's over, yeah, but something else is coming. Vargas narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? He walked over to a storage unit, flipped a cover open, and pulled out a small black device. It buzzed softly, projecting a map of the galaxy. Parts of it were blinking red, systems going dark, new alliances forming, fleets massing in places no one controlled. The Threxians kept the other predators in check, Ray said. With them gone, the real monsters are crawling out of the cracks. He tapped the device. A new symbol appeared. Not Threxian, not Cavor. Something older, something no one had seen before. Vargas stared. Who the hell are they? Ray looked up, serious now. I don't know, but they're watching us. They saw what humans did, what we did. And now? Lee asked. Ray looked between them. Now they want to know if Earth was just lucky, or if we're actually the new threat. Silence settled between them. Then Vargas exhaled slowly. So we're not done. Ray smiled again. Not the cocky, showboating grin. A smaller one. The kind you wear when you know what's coming next won't be easy. But you're ready anyway. No, he said. We're just getting started. Across the galaxy, the Threxian ruins still burned. And in the void left behind, something darker was moving. Watching. Waiting. But now there was one undeniable truth that echoed through every corner of the stars. Humanity had arrived. They didn't ask for permission, and they weren't going away. Not now. Not ever.